On the morning of March 24th, 1998, the cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas was approaching the port of Curaçao in the Caribbean. Among its passengers was 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley, who was traveling with her parents and younger brother. She was last seen alive at 5:30 a.m. on the balcony of her cabin. Minutes later, she vanished without a trace. Her disappearance sparked one of the most chilling unsolved cases at sea, a case that remains clouded in mystery to this day. Amy was born on May 12, 1974, in Petersburg, Virginia. She was athletic, independent, and ambitious. She had just accepted a new job in the field of computer graphics and was preparing to move into her own apartment. The cruise was meant to be a celebratory family vacation before she embarked on her next chapter. Initially, Amy was reluctant to go. She had a deep fear of open water and didn't feel entirely comfortable with the idea of being on a ship. But eventually, not wanting to disappoint her family, she agreed. Amy had a strong personality and a unique style. She stood out, not just because of her tattoos or her bright smile, but because she was someone who left an impression. Friends described her as grounded and self-aware. She was the kind of person who paid attention to details and didn't take unnecessary risks. That's what made her disappearance all the more baffling. She was close to her family and had clear goals for her future, including advancing in her career and building a life of her own. Disappearing voluntarily simply didn't align with anything she had planned. On March 23rd, the family spent the day on the ship, enjoying the amenities in the warm Caribbean sun. That night, they went to the ship's nightclub, where a band named Blue Orchid was performing. Amy was seen dancing with one of the band members, a man known as Alistair Yellow Douglas, as well as socializing with several crew members. Multiple passengers noticed that she received a lot of attention. Some claimed that certain crew members were too friendly, and a few even made inappropriate comments. Around 3:30 a.m., Amy's brother Brad returned to their cabin. Amy was sitting on the balcony smoking a cigarette. He went to bed. Their father, Ron, woke up around 5:30 a.m. and briefly saw Amy still sitting on the balcony, but by 6 a.m., she was gone. Her cigarettes, shoes, ID, and cabin key were all still in the room. Amy, and only Amy, had vanished. Her parents immediately alerted the crew, but the ship's response was slow and disorganized. No announcements were made until hours later, and passengers were allowed to disembark without thorough checks. By the time a search was initiated, any leads that might have been fresh were gone. The FBI became involved, flying to Curaçao and interviewing witnesses, but the trail was already cold. There were no working security cameras in the hallway near Amy's cabin. Crew members were inconsistent in their statements. Alistair Yellow initially claimed he saw Amy early that morning, walking toward the deck. Later, he denied that. The band later changed their statements as well. Suspicion began to grow. Some passengers remembered seeing Amy earlier that evening with a group of men, one of whom seemed aggressive or possessive. However, no one intervened. Crew members were reluctant to speak openly. Some reports suggest that there was an unspoken code of silence among staff. The Bradleys felt that the ship's staff were either hiding something or had been instructed not to say too much. Several witnesses claimed they had been told not to talk about the incident. Over the years, multiple tips and alleged sightings of Amy surfaced. A Canadian tourist claimed to have seen a woman resembling Amy at a beach cafe restroom in Curaçao. The woman allegedly told her, "My name is Amy, help me." In 2005, a former U.S. Navy officer reported visiting a Caribbean brothel where a woman identifying herself as Amy begged for help. He did not report it immediately, fearing repercussions. In 1999, the Bradleys received an anonymous email with an attached photo of a woman resembling Amy lying on a bed in lingerie, appearing distressed. The image was analyzed, and some experts concluded it could very well be her. The possibility that Amy had been abducted and forced into human trafficking became more plausible. Several things support this theory. Amy had mentioned to her family the night before that she felt uncomfortable with the attention from certain crew members. One even knew her cabin number without being told. Witnesses claimed to have seen Amy with uniformed men near the elevators just before sunrise. Others said she may have been led off the ship against her will. There were also unverified reports that Amy had been spotted boarding a smaller vessel, possibly a tender boat, hours after her disappearance. Private investigators were hired by the family over the years. Some pursued leads in Curaçao and neighboring islands. A few leads turned out to be scams. One man promised to bring Amy home in exchange for a large sum of money, but was later arrested for fraud. The family, despite the heartbreak, never gave up. They compiled detailed timelines, maps, and visual materials to present to law enforcement. They even worked with forensic artists to age progress her appearance. The Bradleys became outspoken advocates for missing persons and victims of trafficking. They appeared on national talk shows, worked with law enforcement, and created a foundation in Amy's name. Her mother once said, "I go to bed each night imagining her trapped in a nightmare, and I can't rest." They lobbied Congress, attended international conferences, and helped push for greater awareness of human trafficking on cruise lines. In 2008, another tip came from a woman who claimed she had met Amy in a restroom in Barbados. She said the woman seemed scared and mentioned that she was being held against her will. The woman who made the report described tattoos that matched Amy's: a Tasmanian devil on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a lizard on her navel. The details were strikingly accurate. That same year, Amy's case was featured on multiple high-profile television programs, renewing public interest. Leads poured in, but again, none could be verified. Interpol was notified and new flyers were distributed across Caribbean territories, but no definitive breakthrough followed. Amy's case also raised critical questions about cruise ship jurisdiction. While the ship was registered in Liberia, it was operated by a Miami-based company, and the disappearance occurred near a Dutch island. Legal complexities and lack of coordinated international maritime law enforcement further hindered the investigation. The family's requests for stricter cruise ship safety laws were largely ignored by Congress. In the years that followed, the Bradleys spoke at conferences, appeared on dozens of media outlets, and created public awareness campaigns about the dangers of human trafficking and the vulnerability of cruise passengers. Their persistence led to minor policy changes, but not the sweeping reforms they had hoped for. Amy's parents also reached out to non-governmental organizations that specialize in human trafficking. Some investigators believe she might have been taken off the ship via a hidden port or a crew entrance, possibly drugged. A few suspected an organized ring, using insiders from the cruise industry itself. There were theories that Amy was being held under a different name or forced to assume a new identity. Others speculated that she may have been transported to a remote island, far from any legal or diplomatic reach. Despite extensive searches and numerous reports, no confirmed evidence has ever surfaced. In some versions of the trafficking theory, Amy was moved from country to country over the years, always just out of reach. One investigator even pursued a lead in Venezuela, where a woman with matching tattoos was rumored to be living under surveillance. Over time, attention faded and new headlines replaced Amy's name. But for her family, the search never stopped. Her father, now aging, still revisits the case with journalists, hoping someone will come forward. Her brother continues to help raise awareness about missing persons, especially those lost at sea. They keep Amy's childhood room intact, holding on to the hope that one day she might walk through the door. On what would have been her 40th birthday, the family held a candlelight vigil, attended by friends, former classmates, and strangers who had followed her story. Amy's case remains one of the most disturbing disappearances involving a cruise ship. It exposed systemic flaws in passenger safety, security protocols, and international cooperation. But more importantly, it left a lasting scar on a family that only wanted to celebrate togetherness, and instead lost their daughter to an endless question. She vanished in silence, but the echo of her story has never faded.